Hey, how you doing? Eric at SoCal Cigars. So I wanted to put together a little video geared towards the new cigar smoker that is maybe thinking about heading over to a cigar shop and what to look for, what to expect, maybe some do's and don'ts. Like I've mentioned before, sometimes going into a cigar shop and doing this for the first time can be a little intimidating. A lot of times it seems as if they feel you should already know more than you do, when really you are looking for their help. So I think by going over some of these basics, we can get a little bit of knowledge under your belt, get a little bit of terminology going, so that when you walk into a cigar shop, maybe you're able to better articulate to the employee what you're looking to achieve, and they can steer you in the right direction a whole lot quicker, and might make the whole experience a little better than at least what I've experienced in the past. So I guess let's really just start from the beginning, the basics. What are you gonna get as maybe a first cigar? To me, what I would lean towards is a non-infused cigar, a non-flavored cigar, a traditional tobacco cigar that's just a blend of different tobaccos put together, kind of like a recipe you would for anything. It's a blend of tobaccos that give a certain profile and flavor that the manufacturer is looking to achieve. And the cigars are rated typically for their body, and I guess you can sort of think of that as their strength. So it's going to be everything from a light, medium to a full, and it's kind of a standard rating system that most people have adopted. The good thing about cigars is a lot of times what you see is what you get. If you see a cigar that's a lighter tan colored cigar, a lot of times it's a more mild cigar. If you see something that's a heavy, oily, dark cigar, it's much stronger. Is this always true? Of course not. But is it primarily true, and is something you can kind of bank on for the most part? I found that to be the case. So for example, here we go. This is a typical Connecticut wrapped, light to medium bodied cigar. So again, this is what you're going to be looking for. So you can see, the color, very light in color, very light tan. This is what we're going to go for our first cigar. In contrast, here's a Maduro. Okay, so as you can see, much darker, heavier on the oil, heavier on the blend, heavier on the nicotine. Overall, this is a much stronger cigar, and if this was your first cigar as a novice, this thing's going to knock you back a little bit. I would argue that it'll probably make you feel a little green and a little sick. So this is not where you want to go. This is a cigar you have to build your palate to get to this one down the road. So we're going to stick with a light-bodied cigar like this. So what you'd want to remember when you're going to a retail shop is that you're looking for a light to medium-bodied cigar with a Connecticut wrapper. That's a safe place to start. I don't think that could steer you wrong in any way, shape, or form. There are other light cigars like that that fall into a different category, and that is infused cigars. So here's a Drew Estate Acid line. This is their #1 seller, Cuba Cuba. Fantastic cigar. And we can go into the big debate of whether any kind of infused or flavored cigars are not real cigars. We can talk about that later. I'm a huge fan. I think these are fantastic. My go-to cigars are always infused, and that's just how I am. It's like anything else, bourbon, scotch, wine, pick it. It's whatever it is. It really comes down to what you enjoy. But what I would argue is, in the beginning, stick with a standard cigar that's a standard blend of cigar tobacco. I think that it's important that you build your palate based off of the basics, and the basics is a non-flavored, non-infused cigar. So I'm going to recommend going that route. So, what should I do in a cigar shop? What should I not do in a cigar shop? Depending on who's behind the counter, these can be fickle people. Sometimes I've run across they're arrogant, down to the fact that it seems like they don't know much. Few times I've been lucky enough to go into a cigar shop that they were very knowledgeable, very friendly, very helpful. So again, it's just, it's like any other business. You're going to very quickly determine if it's a place you want to frequent and spend your money at. So the things I would recommend you don't do. When you pick up a cigar, this is like a Lancero. This is a long, thin cigar. But if you notice, there's no wrapper around it. So when I'm picking up a cigar like this, in fact, on this one I actually took the band off. I would probably go out of my way to hold it on the band, because keep in mind, whatever's on your hands, including the natural oils in your hand, that's going to go onto the cigar's wrapper. And if you're not going to buy this cigar and you're putting it back down, someone else is going to buy this. So treat it in a certain way so that you're not, ruining a cigar for the next guy. That being said, the majority of cigars today that I've found are coming in this cellophane wrapper, and it's actually a porous material. It's not like a plastic. It's actually a natural material that's made to protect the cigar from damage, but it also allows humidity to go through the cellophane. So you'll sometimes, if you look it up, you'll see the big debate about leaving the wrapper on or taking it off. Leave it on. Always leave it on is what I've determined. It does nothing bad, and it only does good things. So there's no reason to take it off. But in a cigar shop, don't open the cellophane and pull a cigar out of the cellophane. They don't like that, trust me. And another reason is because if you notice this little barcode on here, and it's actually closed the cigar up on purpose, this is how they track their inventory. So they definitely don't want you pulling this apart and yanking the cigar out. Just leave it in the wrapper. At that point, there's not much to do. I mean, really, all you're going to do is maybe check the firmness to see if it feels like it's been kept in the proper humidification. Don't bother smelling it. You're not going to smell anything but cellophane. And if you are going to smell an unwrapped cigar, like I said, maybe hold it by the band and don't touch your face or your nose. Just smell it. You can smell it if you're a half inch away. I can smell this cigar plenty. And then just put it back down. So they're not looking for you to overly handle the cigars, but feel free to pick them up. That's no taboo on that. Just, don't go overboard with it. So after that, really what you'd want to do is steer the employee that I'm looking for a light-bodied cigar that has a Connecticut wrapper on it. So at least at that point now, you've steered the guy in the right direction. He can now better help you, and also not waste either one of your time by showing you cigars that are clearly not what you're looking for. Because when you walk into a cigar shop for the first time, it can be overwhelming. There seems like there's a million cigars in there, and there's so many variations. It's insane, between ring gauges, sizes, wrappers. There's a lot to decide from. But if you already know what you're looking for as a new cigar smoker, and it's going to be light Connecticut, get that out of the way and get him in getting you into the right section of the cigar shop to start choosing the cigar you want. What I would do is maybe avoid some of the oddball brands, maybe stick with some of the bigger names, and you could, again, maybe that's something you would ask the cigar employee, hey, can you steer me towards a good quality cigar that's reasonably priced, because you could obviously buy a cigar that's $35. You don't need that. In fact, it's a waste of your money, because at this point, your palate's not developed enough to appreciate that anyway. It's like wine or whiskey or bourbon. It takes a while to develop a palate to really appreciate the nuances in the flavor and in a cigar as well. There's a certain palate that the manufacturers are going for when they blend a cigar together, that until you develop that, you're not tasting it anyway. So what I would recommend in the beginning is just get a cigar that's going to be light and mellow. Is not going to risk getting you nicotine overdose, nicotine poisoning. You can get a little bit too much nicotine. That's what makes you feel kind of green. Another little pro tip here is, before you smoke a cigar, eat, have something to drink, like some water or something. Even me, if I smoke a heavier cigar on an empty stomach and maybe a little dehydrated, it makes me feel a little green. So make sure you've done that. That's why a lot of times you'll see people having a cigar after dinner, because they've already got that part taken care of. So let's say now you're in the shop, you've chosen your cigar. There's going to be two more things you're going to need. You're going to need a lighter, and you're going to need a cutter. My recommendation are little lighters like these little torches. That's what people call them now. I like this one especially because it's clear and I can see the level of fluid, and I'm not guessing, like if I'm going to grab this to go, I'm not guessing how much is left in here, I can see. And they're also configured in many ways, anywhere from 1, 2, 3, 4 little burners in there. In the end, I don't know, pick one you like. They all light your cigar, so it's not really that big of a deal. But it is important that you get one of these type of lighters. What you don't want to do is impart any flavoring in a negative way to your cigar. For example, like a wooden match is a good example. If you were to strike a wooden match, well, part of the ignition process of that is sulfur burning. So if you were to strike that match and get it to your cigar right away, the first draw you take through there is going to be sulfur. So not the best idea. These triple filter butane lighters, they don't impart any flavoring, so these are really the ideal way to go. And they're not expensive. That lighter is probably $8. The next thing you're going to want is you're going to want a way to cut your cigar. What I do is I have a little carabiner, and I just throw this in my pack when I'm leaving. I've got a guillotine, I've got a V cutter, and a punch. There's more types of cutters out there than this. You don't really need to worry about that at this point. If you're just beginning, what you just want to do is cut your cigar. And if you have 50 cutters in your arsenal, believe me, one of them is a guillotine. Okay, this is just a little cheap plastic double-bladed guillotine cutter that will cut your cigar just fine. So go ahead and grab one of these. This is probably $5, $6. Again, I wouldn't suggest dumping tons of cash into this until you really have determined over time that this is something you want to continue, because I've seen these things over $100. I don't know why. I mean, maybe they're worth it, maybe they're not, whatever. I did just order a new one because this one's getting a little bit dull because I've had it a while. And I did spend a little more money than I thought I would on it, but it's a name brand. It's got like a serrated edge on it. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It's on the way from an online source, so I haven't got it yet to try it. But so that's really the three things you need out the gate. You need the cigar, you need to cut it, you need to light it. The only other thing I would touch on right now is how to carry that cigar around. So they're probably going to throw it in a bag like this for you. Okay, that's fine. At this point, you're not looking to keep long-term storage for your one cigar, so it's not that big a deal. If you really wanted to go the next step up, so what I've done is when I order samplers, like I'm a big fan of these boutique samplers, because I don't want to ever waste my money on a box of cigars that in the end I smoke one, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate these. So for example, this was Christoph. This is a brand that's out there I was not familiar with. I saw this online one time. They looked interesting to me, which is what I do. I see something and it piques my interest. I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that. What I thought was cool, though, is it came with this humidibag. And so if you look through this little window, that black backer runs all the way from top to bottom, and it's actually lightly dampened. So this bag actually, when it's sealed up, offers some humidification for your cigars. So I would highly recommend that if you get a delivery of cigars in these, don't throw the bag out. Keep it until it dries up and move on to the next one. But these are, the next step up from having just a plastic bag. Beyond that, what you're going to probably get in the end is going to be what this is called a Herfador, or this brand is Cigar Caddy. So what this is just little ABS plastic. It almost looks like those camera cases that you would normally carry some equipment in. So what you'll do is you'll see in here, this is just foam that's got little ridges, so you can keep your 5 cigars in here. Do notice that it does have this disc for humidification. What you're supposed to do is put some distilled water on that. Highly recommend that you don't. What that is actually modeling foam that they carry, like in hobby places or florist shops that they do fake flowers. They stick it into this foam green stuff. And if you use it and let it sit and use it and let it sit, what I've seen and what you don't want is it can build up black mold. So I never use these. If like for this Herfador, I've not once used that. And if I've ever gotten a humidor in the past that came with a free little, it'll come with like a little rectangular metal or plastic bracket, and you'll see that green foam in it, toss it right in the trash can. You don't want to use it. It's not worth the risk of getting mold. Last thing you need to do is try to fix your humidor of a mold problem. So you don't want to do that. So now we've kind of done what we needed to do. We've gone to a cigar shop. We've got the things we need. We've got everything we need to cruise over to a buddy's house and have a nice cigar. So what do we need to know now? Well, we need to know how to cut this thing and how to light this thing. So let's take a look at this little Lancero that I pulled out of my humidor. So I'll go into cigar construction and all that in a different video. This isn't what that video is for. This is just to get you to first base with your cigar. So all you really need to know about this is two parts. The end of it, which is the raw tobacco that's open, that's the foot. Okay, that's the part we're going to light. The other end is called the cap. Okay, so why that is that when they wrap the cigar with the final layer of wrapper, and in our case it's a Connecticut light wrapper, they then go back and then they put this cap on in a special method. It's kind of cool. If you go online and search how to hand roll a cigar, you'll see the whole gig, but for our purposes I just want to show you what the bottom line of this is. So you'll notice there's actually like a little delineation line of where the cap begins and then the rest of the wrapper begins. So everything from about my fingernail up is the cap. Everything from my fingernail down is the remainder of the wrapper. So here's the problem. If you cut anywhere from my fingernail down, the wrapper is going to unwrap. Okay, and so I've seen a lot of people that have bought an expensive cigar. They cut it way down here, and then they're smoking it, and it's falling apart on them, and they're, oh my god, I spent all this money, what a piece of crap cigar. No, you cut it wrong. Okay, and that's, again, one thing you don't want to do in front of your buddies. I mean, I know part of getting this little bit of education is so that we maybe look like we know more than we even do, because we don't want to look like an idiot. You know, I get it. It's all good. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our guillotine cutter, and we're going to open it up. And this is a little bit hard to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of place it where I'm going to want to cut this thing, okay? And I'm going to show you, if I can get you, there you go. You can kind of see in there. So see, I'm really only looking at cutting the very tip of that cap off. So what I'm going to do is I don't want to go slow. I want to make a cleaner cut. I want to do a pretty fast motion, okay? Snip it pretty fast, okay? So now what I've got is I've got my cigar and I've cut the very top of the cap off. And as you can see, if you're looking at this again, you can kind of see the line down here that kind of shows where the cap is. I've only just cut the top off. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, and there's a few reasons you do this, but for the purposes of what we're talking about, is I'm going to do a dry draw on this cigar. Okay. So I'm just going to puff on my cigar before I light it, so I can see how the draw is. Because what I don't want is a draw that's too tight. It's where I'm feeling like I'm really having to suck my cheeks in to get this thing to pull through. And that can be a lot to do with the construction of the cigar, especially poorer quality cigars. Sometimes they're rolled too tightly, and you can't get a good pull through the cigar. They actually make long metal rods you can ream the cigar with, but at that rate, man, I'd just toss it and go on to the next one and just chalk it up to this as a crappy cigar. Other people will also do a dry draw to get the dry flavor of the tobacco. That's down the road. But let's do a dry draw and see what we think. Not bad. Okay, so I feel like I can puff on this cigar. I'm not having to sink my cheeks in and, you know, go crazy on it. So I'm happy with that cut. So what I would have had to do if I wasn't happy with that and the draw was too tight is I would probably have to maybe try to cut a little more off. Push it a little bit. There's not really much else you can do. Sometimes I've seen people squeeze them, you know, try to loosen up the tobacco a little bit. But for the most part, most cigars are pretty good, especially if you're buying a decent brand. You're not too worried about that. Okay, so now that we've cut it, we've made sure we're not cutting it to unravel. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to toast our foot. There's a couple reasons we're going to do that. Actually, by toasting the foot, it's going to make it light a lot easier, and what we're hoping for is a very even light. We want the whole end to light. We don't want to have this half lit, this is still not lit, because we're going to set the tone for how the cigar is going to burn from our lighting. Okay, so we want to start good from the get-go, right? The other thing is by rotating and toasting the foot, we're going to actually shrink down and seal this binder a little, or this wrapper against the binder a little bit. So that's going to be a little bit helpful on the draw and how it burns as well. So keep in mind, we're not looking to put this right on here. We're not looking to burn this thing. All I'm really looking to do is to toast it. And I'm looking to change that from raw tobacco color to like a darker color. And keep in mind that the end of your flame, where you just can't see it anymore, is about the hottest part of your flame. So just keep that in mind. We're not looking to light this thing up like a tiki torch, okay? So let's go ahead and we're just going to kind of rotate it around and maybe rotate the lighter around a little bit. Keep an eye on it. We're not looking to light it either, okay? It'll smoke a little bit. But now look, what I've done is I've completely toasted that foot. And some people will actually come back around and go around the outside of the wrapper a little bit to help, like I said, shrink it onto the binder and tighten that seal. I don't know. I don't always do that. Sometimes I do if I pay attention to it. If I've got an awesome cigar and I want to really make sure I'm covering all my bases properly. Okay, but now that we've toasted that foot, this thing is now primed to light easier. And we're going to be more successful at getting a complete full light. So we're going to do the same thing now, but we're going to draw through the cigar and get this thing lit. Notice I rotated it a little bit, okay, because I want to make sure, and I'm going to puff it. Sometimes you can blow on it, like if it's nighttime, you can see that it's all glowing orange. I'm going to utilize the technology of my camera here. That looks pretty good to me. If you're concerned and you think you see a spot that's not lit, go ahead and hit it again. Okay, now I'm pretty confident that I'm lit. So, the next thing that I get asked a lot is, how often do I take a hit? This isn't a Marlboro on a smoke break at work where you're just trying to get that nicotine fix to get back into work. You know, remember, we're smoking this to enjoy this. This is a 45-minute to an hour commitment. Okay, we're not looking just to get this over with. We want to enjoy the smoke. So remember one thing, that when you're drawing smoke through this cigar, the whole cigar is sort of acting as a filter. So like if you were to smoke half of this and then cut the other half in half, you'll see a big black line. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to hotbox this thing. When you draw and you get this cigar heated up, it'll start to change its flavor profile, and it'll start to get a little bit bitter, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so what you're going to do is, at least the recommendation I've always gone by, is not to puff on your cigar more than every 45 seconds to a minute. So we're not looking to just nail this thing and get this thing burning down. We're looking to take nice, long, slow, even draws. No more than 45 minutes to a minute apart. Okay. And for the complete novice, here's your pro tip of the day. We don't inhale cigar smoke. Okay? This is just pulling smoke into your mouth. Down the road, you can learn about a thing called retrohaling, where you're going to let a little bit of the smoke, maybe 20% of the smoke, circulate through your sinuses and out your nose, so that you can taste some of the different notes. That's when you talk about people saying it's nutty or spicy, or I can taste oak or whatever. A lot of that's coming from retrohaling, and that's a different method of flavor, of getting the profiles out of the cigar, but you're not worried about that right now. You're just taking the smoke in your mouth, letting it sit there a little bit, and just blowing it out. And you're getting the nicotine that way, because it's, whatever goes into your mouth and your sinuses, you're going to absorb into your body as well. So even though we're not drawing this into our lungs, which is good, we're still getting the nicotine from it. So just remember, we're not inhaling these things. In fact, they say an average cigar, about, let's say an average Robusto size cigar, can be about equal to a pack of cigarettes. Okay, the difference is there's 281 chemicals in cigarette tobacco. There's only 2. There's cigar leaves and then whatever kind of natural paste they use to hold it together. So the beauty of a cigar is it is a more natural thing that you're smoking. It's only 2 ingredients versus 281 weird chemicals in cigarettes. So they're radically different. But remember, we're not inhaling this. That wouldn't look great in front of a group of friends if you inhaled one of these, because you would turn green and would be coughing for about 10 minutes. So, but anyway, I think we've got it covered. I think that, we've for a recap, we're going to go to a store. We're going to grab our Connecticut Light cigar. We're going to grab a inexpensive lighter and guillotine cutter. We're going to throw it into our little bag, and we're going to head over to whoever's gathering. We're going to sit around and have a nice cigar, and we're going to properly cut this thing so we know it's not going to come undone on us. We're going to properly light it by toasting the foot. We're not going to hotbox our cigar. We're not going to inhale, and we're going to socialize, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to relax, and we're going to start to build our palate by trying different brands, different strengths. We're going to throw in an infused here and there, and you're going to start to build your palate, and you're going to start to really understand what you like, what you don't like, and then you'll want to move into the next levels of storage and humidification and all that. This is a thing you're going to invest some money in, so you want to make sure that that investment is protected by storage in the proper way. So anyway, I hope you got something out of this. I definitely enjoy doing this. Hopefully I can help you guys get started in the right path, answer some of those questions, so you can really enjoy this like a lot of us do. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. Leave any comments you have below. If there's something you really want to know, feel free to leave a comment. I will definitely look at those and make a video for it. Again, Eric at SoCal Cigars. Go grab that first cigar and enjoy it. We'll see you next time.